This is the world of company secretaries. On this channel, you can watch interviews with company secretaries across the world. Make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon. Sir, the next thing is you have done a lot of work in getting Section 383A passed in Companies Act 1956. So in the Companies Act 1956, Section 383A is one of the first steps which really started to open up this profession, which was very little known in that time. Can you tell us what was the challenges to get this section passed and what were the immediate consequences?
So if you see, the real recognition of the profession came from 383A. Section 383A says that any person, any company having a paid up capital of rupees 25 lakhs and above must appoint a full-time company secretary and who must be a member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. So earlier than that, it was not so. So 383A is very important. Before 383A, anybody could be appointed as a company secretary, or it was not compulsory for anybody to appoint a company secretary. This 383A was inserted in the Companies Act of Companies Amendment Act 1974. And it came into effect from 1st February 1975. Now, I again repeat that until 1975, there were no regulations for appointment of company secretaries. That means it was not compulsory for anybody to appoint a company secretary, though there is a provision in the Companies Act 1956 that you may appoint a company secretary. But there was no compulsion to appoint a company secretary and no qualifications were prescribed. That means even matriculates were also, firstly, there were not many company secretaries. And secondly, even the matriculate could be appointed as company secretaries in the organization. So this section provided, as I say, compulsory appointment of 20 companies having a paid up capital of 25 lakhs and above. So this compulsion is the only thing which came into effect from 1st February 1975. And this compulsion gave a birth to the profession of company secretaries of India. Now, you asked me the hurdles. Passing of this act by both the houses of the parliament was a difficult task. Firstly, it was opposed by the industry. Industry means your FICCI, SOCHM, PhD Chamber of Commerce, all were against it. They said they felt that it was a burden of the companies to appoint a full-time secretary. And especially they also made a mention that the Chartered Accountants Act was passed in the year 1949, and they are very useful members. And as on date, even after so many years, there is no compulsion on the companies to appoint a chartered accountant on the as a full-time employment. Why there should be a company secretary in full-time appointment to be appointed in the company? There was strong opposition by the chartered accountants and lawyers also, because prior to that, most of the work was being done by the chartered accountants. Now, this was another hurdle. Now, third, coming to the parliament. In parliament also, most of the members were chartered accountants or lawyers or industry. So under these circumstances, passing of 383A was very difficult. At that time, Mr. H.R. Gokhale was law minister, and he made a statement in the parliament. He could prevail on the Lok Sabha and said, he referred to the minutes of 1956 parliament. That means in the year 1956, there was some minuted decision that the company should appoint a full-time secretary. When Companies Act 1956 was passed, I'm referring to Companies Act 1956. It was from 1st April 1956. So when this act was or bill was passed, there had been question that Companies Act, Indian Companies Act, is the largest piece of legislature in the country, having 658 sections, about 16, 17 schedules, rules, notifications, addendum, appendices, etc. Companies Act is the largest piece of legislation in the country. You compare with any act in India, Companies Act is the largest piece of legislation. And second, Companies Act of India is the largest Companies Act of the world. In the world, there is no act as big as the Companies Act. So therefore, a question was raised, who will be the person to administer such a big act? At that time, the answer, the reply given by those ministers at that time was that there will be whole-time company secretaries and and they will administer it. So, because it was a mandated decision of the Parliament in the year 1956, so therefore it is necessary, it is a promise of the Parliament to pass this act. So this is how the act was passed.
This is really wonderful, sir. So the Parliament had an intention to have a company secretary way back in 1955-56, and that was noted in 1974 by the minister, Mr. Gokhale.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But I can say, sir, this was not the end of the problem. The passing of the act was not end of the problem. There were number of other things. One, at that time, we were hardly 1,400 members.
Yes, 1,400 in all India.
In all India, including GDCS. Including GDCS. One. Secondly, the number of companies having paid up capital of 25 lakhs and now were 5,500.
Yes.
When it is a compulsion, then you don't have members. How will you comply with the act? There are 5,500 members, companies. We only said that we have about more than 5,500 students. If you approve it, then they will also occupy, they will pass the examination next year time and we'll have adequate number of company secretaries. This was one. Secondly, big companies had appointed company secretaries, and those company secretaries were very qualified, also chartered accountants, lawyers, and some persons passed from London Institute of Company Secretaries. So there were persons and they were working in the companies for a number of years. They were signing the balance sheets, etc. So they said those persons who are already acting as the company secretaries in such companies, they should be given membership without passing the examination. This was another thing. How to remove the company secretary who are well qualified and working in the companies for quite a long time. There was another class of people also, where the persons were not qualified, like company secretaries there, but he's a matriculate, not having adequate qualifications and not having adequate experience also. What will happen to that? Will they be admitted as a member of the institute, or can they continue as a secretary of those companies? So these are the three types of difficulties at that time. Of many other were there. In the year 1949, Chartered Accountants Act was passed. Before that, there were registered accountants.
Correct.
And those registered accountants were admitted as CA, as members of the Institute of Chartered Accountants without passing the examination. So on the same policy, the Institute of Company Secretaries also had to take such a member, such persons as members of the Institute of Company Secretaries without passing the examination. Okay. So in that case, what was done? A criteria had to be laid. The criteria laid was that those persons who have passed the examination of Chartered Accountancy London, or who are chartered accountants, or cost accountants, or MBAs, or MComs, minimum of these qualifications, and have been working with the companies for at least 3 years, and must have their Form 32, that is for appointment, must have been filed with the Registrar of Companies, and they must have signed the balance sheets of the company for 3 years. So those persons would be admitted as members without passing the examination.
Okay. Very interesting.
Now, my third question again remains, sir. And the third question was, what will happen to those companies, those company secretaries who do not have adequate qualifications and who do not have adequate experience? What will happen to them? So it was decided that they are given 5 years time. That during 5 years time, they can continue to be secretary of those companies.
Okay.
Not mobility is not allowed. They cannot go and be appointed as a secretary of any other company, but they can continue to act as secretary of those companies. And during this period, 5 years, either they pass the examination or they quit as company secretary of secretaries. So
Okay, they were basically given a window within which they have to pass the exam, and they can't go to other companies and work as a company secretary.
Yes, sir. You asked me the difficulties and challenges faced. I will say something more also. At that time, say number of persons who were admitted as members were about 1,200. We were about 1,400. I'll not say they outnumbered, but I can still say they outnumbered us. Now, the Institute of Company Secretaries was not ours, it was theirs. And who were those persons? Those persons were mostly chartered accountants and lawyers. And such persons never liked the Institute of Company Secretaries. So, how to handle such a situation? Now, we old veterans decided to play a low-key role. That will be very way. And those persons also were powerful. Powerful means they were represented bigger companies. They were much more educated, I can say. May not be company secretaries, but highly educated, highly experienced, and working in very big companies. So we decided that all key positions should be given to them. That means regional council members, central council members. We made them all central council members, central council president, vice president, chairman, vice chairman. We gave all posts to them. Now, a person who holds the position in an organization, in an institute, they will never talk about the institute.
Correct.
So with that, about 4 or 5 years was sufficient for us. And they also ultimately, but on the background, we old veterans were working behind the scene, behind the curtain, and were old secretaries were doing the job. After passing of the examination, after passing of this act, there were other problems also connected with this. That is, in the year 1975, we had to revise the syllabus. There were no study at that time. Like I can say, there were only papers. There were no syllabus. So we defined the syllabus. I can say I contributed a lot, although not in the preparation of the syllabus at that time. Although it was passed by the Central Council, but basic legwork was done for drafting the syllabus was done by me. And then we wrote study lessons also, because otherwise, what will students do? Just defining the course was not sufficient. And the books were not available in the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. So they not anywhere in the country. So therefore, according to the syllabus, according to the papers, it was necessary for us that we prepare study lessons. I also prepared one lesson. Rather, I started preparing the lesson as a symbol, or as I say, a type of sample, that this is how you have to prepare the study lesson. I prepared study lessons for company meetings at that time. So the difficulties were the preparation of the study lessons, preparation of the syllabus. These things were there. And one more difficulty we had was the funds. At that time, neither the institute had the funds nor the regional councils. So in most cases in the northern region, I can say all the study circle meetings or lecture meetings used to be held in my office, and even the regional council members used to be held in my office. Same was the case with the other regional councils also, and the Institute of Company Secretaries was also not spending much because the institute did not have any funds, and nor the central council was giving any funds to the regional council because it did not have the funds itself. So this was another difficulty or challenge we had. I think I have taken much of the time and said more than what was required.
No, actually, before I even go to the next question, what you have done and your colleagues at that time is really unbelievable. Literally, the Institute of Company Secretaries of India was on the cusp of becoming irrelevant, but from there, you and your team has really, like the institute has risen like a phoenix from the ashes, and Really, we don't have anything except gratitude for what you have done that time. Today, thousands and lakhs of students and thousands of members are getting the benefit. So we really want to thank. Before I go to the next question,